All of us have very important and pivotal moments in life which could be regarded as crossroads. Crossroads are the points which, if we choose a certain specific way, our immediate future and overall fate will be greatly influenced. But normally, we are not given any sort of hints or indicators about these decisive moments. Rather, they tend to come our way in a disguise. This disguise could be something like a normal decision, where the alarm clock goes off at 5 a.m. in the morning as a reminder to work out, a conversation that we kept procrastinating over, or a deadline for some work that we are required to submit on a weekend. It is in these moments where the diabolical choice is the same: make excuses for something or make progress. The philosophy of nitrogen monoxide excuses is make an excuse alludes to a much deeper sense of relinquishing and escaping reality. The philosophy represents a commitment to choosing the excuse-laden reality, which is always accessible to us. Change is the one constant in life, and the boundaries that limit any human are self-imposed. It's about accepting accountability, which reminds us that whether we are the hero or the villain in the story, one cannot escape from deciding how to respond to their worries. Excuses are seductive and make us restless because they represent face value truths. You could very well be tired now. Saying I'm too tired is as an excuse, when technically you are fatigued in the moment. You might actually not have enough time free in your busy schedule to go attend a few meetings and networking sessions. You could even be missing out on some advantageous connections in your network. The disguise of excuses isn't that they are completely incorrect, but the fact that they pose as definitive remarks while only being an observation. They change obstacles into impossibilities. They change the phrase, "this is tough," into "this cannot be accomplished." The worst of all is that they shift the blame away from us, placing our chances of success at the hands of other people. Now think about how many amazing feats would never come to be if their inventors turned to genuine excuses. Thomas Edison had every right to give up on the light bulb after hundreds of attempts, but instead persisted. JDNK. Rowling could have put her Harry Potter manuscripts in the drawer after countless rejections, but she chose to not let the fact that she was a nobody stop her. When Stephen Hawking was diagnosed with LS, he could have dropped all scientific pursuits, but he didn't. Nelson Mandela, for example, could have emerged from 27 years of imprisonment bitter and defeated, but instead he decided to become a visionary. All of these people dealt with stuff that is way more difficult than most of us will ever experience in our lifetime. They knew that as much as excuses might seem valid at the end of the day, they were simply agreements to not succeed. The impact of excuses is most dangerous in their long-term effect. For instance, one skipped workout wouldn't change your health, but a pattern of exercise avoidance most certainly would. Similarly, one procrastinated project won't disrupt your career, but a habit of postponement certainly will. The toll of excuses can be cited as 3 in number. 1. The identity tax. Making excuses doesn't mean only task avoidance. Instead, it's exercise in sculpting your self-concept. Thus, you are reinforcing a limited narrative about yourself and your capabilities. This is known as self-signaling in psychology, the processes, where actions reflecting on a person's beliefs informs him about himself. When you constantly choose an easier path, an excuse over action, the story you are telling yourself is, I am someone who does not follow through. I am someone who gives up when things get tough. Or I am someone whose outcomes are dictated by my circumstances. These beliefs are known as identity beliefs, and inevitably self-fulfilling prophecies bound to spiral endlessly towards decreasing expectations and worsening results. 2. The opportunity cost. Every excuse you make is an opportunity. You lose not just the immediate progress, but the compounded gown fractures gained from it. You don't just lose the calories from the workout you miss, you forfeit the gained momentum. The habit loop? and the physiologically changes that would have taken place. When you decide not to start a business, you don't just lose the potential revenue, you lose the advanced skills you could have gained, the relationships you would have forged, and the opportunity that would have happened because of it. You don't just fail to take action. When you make excuses, you lose all the positive outcomes that result from the said action. 3. The regret premium as we reflect on our lives. We might notice, as Bronnie Ware observed in her work with the terminally ill, one particularly poignant realization: I wish I had the courage to live true to myself, not the life others expected of me. These words clearly indicate a lack of freedom and repressed social expectation. Protecting oneself from excuses sounds quite appealing at first, but one must realize that it can never shield a person from the reality of the world, and in this caseto, regret. And there is nothing more painful than knowing a half-life being led, when so much more could have been achieved. The psychology behind the excuses. Trying to comprehend the different varieties of excuses will help eliminate them. Making this effort is critical to one's success in life. Notable work has been done in the field of psychology pertaining to excuse-making behavior, covering these several mechanisms. Fear of failure. In one way, attempts to justify a broken assumption concerning one's ability, and performance stems from the dire phenomenon of failure. There, to anticipate failure, the so-called protective fences are set up, and in this case called excuse-making fences. Predictable justifications are far worse than justification, made afterward because it presupposes a way out. Cognitive dissonance. Everyone wants to have a consistent perception of themselves, and humans are no exception. The moment our actions contradict how we see ourselves, it gives rise to psychological discomfort. As in the case of cognitive dissonance, the logic which blends self-explaining rationalizations helps in coming to balance dissonance by forming a reason for the contradiction. This helps to retain the preceding judgmental feelings despite performing actions, which are not in consonance with it. Immediate gratification bias. There is a bias which gives an advantage for something that can be achieved right now, relative to a later date. In other words, the brain has been designed to spend on immediate needs rather than long-term benefits. The act of using an excuse takes away discomfort straight away, and why the costs of that excuse will always be put on over time in a staggering way. Therefore, motivating both time and said rewards are not salient. Learned helplessness. This occurs when we have doi needing to deal with a certain situation for a sustained period of time. The ability to deal will change to applied rather than refrained within excuses, then perpetually become the narrative which justifies this helplessness. Champions make no excuses. Most difference makers are not distinguished by the absence of barriers, but rather the way they react to them. These extraordinary achievers champion performance by showing evidence of flexibility within load-bearing standards. Think about the life of Bethany Hamilton, who, at 13, lost her arm in a shark attack. She could have given up on her surfing dreams with the best excuse imaginable. Rather, she went back to surfing only a month after the attack, going on to become a professional surfer, competing against fully abled athletes. Or consider the story of Jim Carrey, who, at one point, lived with his family in a van while trying to make it as a comedian. He faced both poverty and rejection, but famously wrote himself a check for $10 million for acting services rendered, far before he could ever cash it. Both of these individuals and countless others have shown that success isn't about having no reasons to pursue. Your goal sets about having every reason to give up and pushing through anyway. They show us the reality that excuses, no matter how valid, will never be as strong as your willpower. The no excuses approach, moving from inactivity to action. The nitrogen monoxide excuses mindset is more than about motivation. It is about how you systematically recondition your responses to challenges. Here is how to go about it. 1. Become aware of your excuses. The first step is simply tuning into how and why you come up with excuses. For a lot of people, excuse making ensues automatically and is very much below the radar. Pay attention to the internal dialogue during challenging situations. Pay attention to statements such as "I would," "but," and "I can't," because these sign phrases indicate excuses are being made. For 1 week, make an excuse log for each actionable goal, and then list every excuse you think of for not accomplishing the goal. Being aware of the excuse log will, in itself, reduce a lot of never-ending excuses. 2. Distinction of reasons and excuses. The key difference here lies within "does." The explanation pave way for a problem-solving journey, or a dead end that leads to relief from action. Within either rational, an explanation does provide a level of an excuse. A reason recognizes context, but adapts to it today. "I have limited time, so I will do a 20-minute high-intensity workout instead of my hour-long workout." An excuse justifies inaction. Claiming limited resources, "I have limited time today, so I will not be working out at all." Encourage yourself to reframe explanations as opportunities for problem solving, rather than phrasing them as declarative statements. 3. Foster environmental responsibility. We often give in to excuses due to our surroundings. Change your environment to make excuse-making more challenging. State your goals publicly. Identify accountability partners who will not hesitate to challenge your excuses. Set predetermined consequences for failing to meet expectations. Remove any tangible or intangible distractions from your immediate environment. Schedule non-negotiable appointments such as workouts to eliminate the need for decision-making. 4. Foster a focused problem-solving approach for every barrier. Instantly redirect your mental efforts from "why is this happening?" towards "how can I navigate around this?" When encountering a roadblock, force yourself to automatically brainstorm alternative routes to your destination. The next time you catch yourself saying "I can't," ask yourself, "how could I?" Replacing "I can't" with "how could I" simplifies hurdles instead of encountering problems. We face challenges that can be navigated around. 5. Welcoming discomfort as growth. Discomfort is challenging to cope with, and that's where a multitude of excuses arise from. Reframe discomfort not as something to mitigate, but rather as a sensation that indicates growth and adjustment. Similar to psychological discomfort, physical exercise causes microscopic tears on muscle tissues, which eventually leads to greater strength. Practice seeking discomfort that you are able to manage on a daily basis. Such practices slowly expand your zone of comfort, while reducing your need for protective excuse mechanisms. 6. Cultivate self-compassion without self-indulgence. The nitrogen monoxide excuses ideology is not about self-punishment or denial of boundaries. Rather, it is aimed at refusing to let those boundaries limit your possibilities. Balanced compassion towards self and accountability is what strikes the right balance here. Accept that you will fail and you should. While doing so, sidestep the extreme self-loathing "I am worthless" and the excuse blame game "it's not my fault." Relieve yourself with self-compassionate accountability. "I acknowledge my mistake. What can I extract from this? How can I approach this differently in the future?" Complete freedom. What appears initially as harsh discipline in the nitrogen monoxide excuses philosophy paradoxically results in profound freedom when unapologetically taking ownership of the consequences and outcomes of decisions made. The powerful feeling of taking back control of one's life is experienced. One shifts from being a passive participant reacting to situations to an active mover shaping their reality. This freedom manifests in several dimensions. Lack of freedom due to external approval. When you truly own your decisions and their effects, you no longer rely on people's acceptance for appreciation. Your self-esteem stems from your fidelity to your promises, and not from other people's affirmations. Lack of freedom due to past events. Your past justifies your starting point, but does not dictate where you are headed towards. As soon as you stop using your past as a justification for your future, you set yourself free from its pull. Lack of freedom due to other people's standards of success. Taking full responsibility means that you do not have to measure your success by other people's achievements anymore. You are free to set meaningful objectives that are in harmony with your principles and pursue them with relentless determination. Lack of freedom because of not having control of the situation. While you may not be able to determine every happening in your life, you do have total control of what you do about those things. This ability to react is the cornerstone of personal strength. The daily practice? The nitrogen monoxide excuses philosophy isn't put into place via bold proclamations, but through consistent smaller decisions made every day. It's shaped during the times you finish your workout even when you're tired, have that tough conversation even when it's uncomfortable. Keep trying to learn even after you face setbacks. Maintain your standards even in the face of temptations. Go after your goals and dreams even when there is an uncertainty. Choosing action over excuses just one time already reinforces the mindset. Every time you choose taking full responsibility, instead of backing away with an excuse, you're improving your capacity to achieve the ultimate question. Nonetheless, the nitrogen monoxide excuses philosophy makes us face a very crucial question. What kind of person do you wish to become? An individual who justifies explaining why they couldn't do it, or someone who retrieves methods to accomplish? A person limited by their own circumstances, or someone who is capable of shattering those boundaries? This question has a rather not so straightforward answer which, without the needed words, will be consistent choices that will shape not only what is achieved, but who one becomes. Actively keep in mind every individual confronts hurdles. Doubts are experienced by all. There are incessant reasons to throw in the towel. The shift from being extraordinary to ordinary doesn't come from the absence of challenges, but the use of excuses. Potential is available right after your excuses. The question lies if you're brave enough to stop making excuses and start making history. No more excuses, starting now.